Some places guide you home, and some places guide you to your death. Tonight, you'll hear two terrifying stories about a lighthouse that should have been a beacon of safety, but instead became a trap for the living, the dead, and anyone desperate enough to seek its light. These stories are whispered among sailors, denied by authorities, and buried by every survivor who swore never to speak again. If you've ever believed lighthouses protect you, after tonight, you won't. Story Part 1. You only realize the lighthouse is watching you when its beam stops moving, and by then, it's already too late. I didn't believe that at first. People exaggerate, sailors especially. But the night I arrived at Blackridge Coast, I learned that some warnings aren't meant to be understood, only obeyed. My name is Daniel Harker, a maritime surveyor. My job is simple: inspect coastal structures, evaluate safety, write reports. I've been doing it for years. Storms, floods, remote islands. I've seen everything. Nothing scared me. Nothing even surprised me anymore. Until Blackridge. It wasn't even on most maps anymore. A jagged, forgotten coastline with cliffs shaped like broken teeth. The locals avoided mentioning it. The fisherman who ferried me there wouldn't step out of the boat. He kept muttering under his breath, refusing to make eye contact. "You finish before sunset," he warned me. "You hear me? Before sunset. That lighthouse. Once it locks its eyes on you, it doesn't look away." I laughed. He didn't. The Blackridge Lighthouse was built in 1887, tall, spindly, and blackened by age. From afar, it looked dead. No glow, no movement. But as my boots touched the rock, the lantern room at the top flickered to life. I froze. "It was off a second ago," I whispered. The beam swept across the sea, then rotated inland, slowly, dragging across the cliffs. Then, across me. Cold light washed over my face. It lingered, longer than it should. I should have taken that as the first warning. Instead, I took it as a malfunction. Inside, the lighthouse smelled of rust, salt, and something like damp wool. The structure groaned with every gust of wind. My flashlight barely cut through the shadows. The spiral stairs looked endless, metal steps leading up into darkness. As I climbed, I noticed carvings in the walls, deep scratches, words overlapping like the writers were desperate, frantic. D-O-N-T, look at the light. D-O-N-T, let it follow you. D-O-N-T. The last line was scraped so violently, the metal had curled. I tried to ignore the pressure building in my chest. Halfway up, my radio crackled. Static. Then a voice. Except I didn't bring a radio. "Where are you?" it whispered. A man's voice, breathless, terrified. I spun around. My flashlight flickered. The stairs were empty. "Who's there?" My own voice sounded too loud. No answer, just slow, dragging breaths. Then a soft knock on the metal wall, right behind me. I nearly fell as I scrambled up the last steps and burst into the lantern room. You know how lighthouses usually work. The lens rotates, sweeping light across the sea. But Blackridge didn't rotate. The beam pointed straight forward, out into the endless dark water, as if staring. Not illuminating. Hunting. And when I stepped in, the gears began to turn, slowly, painfully, like something inside them had just woken up. The lens rotated toward me. I stepped back. No, don't. The light hit my face. A ringing sound filled my ears. My vision tunneled. The world felt distant, like I was sinking underwater. And then I saw something that wasn't there. A shoreline. Ships abandoned. Hundreds of them. Masts snapped, hulls torn. A graveyard of vessels surrounding the lighthouse like bones circling a predator. Then faces. Dozens. Pale, hollow-eyed faces pressed against the glass from the inside of the lens, screaming soundlessly. I ripped my gaze away, stumbling back so hard I slammed into the opposite wall. The vision vanished, but the ringing stayed. My breath came out in shudders. What the hell is this place? Below me, footsteps echoed, slow, deliberate, coming up the stairs. I wasn't alone. The metal steps groaned under weight. Heavy weight, one step at a time. Something was climbing, steady and patient. "Hey," I called down. "Who's there?" The footsteps stopped. Utter silence. Then, tap, 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 like long fingernails on metal. Something whispered up the tower, "Don't leave." My entire body went cold. I didn't think. I climbed out onto the narrow balcony, encircling the lantern room. The wind nearly ripped me off, howling like something alive. Below, the waves crashed violently against the cliffs. The lighthouse's beam swung toward the sea again, but now I noticed something horrifying. The fog wasn't natural. It moved like a living thing, swirling upward, reaching for the tower, wrapping around it like arms. I could hear something inside the wind, faint voices, pleading, crying. Help. Us. Ghosts. Spirits. Whatever you want to call them. Something trapped here. The footsteps resumed inside. I dashed back in, slamming the door shut, leaning against it with my full weight. Something on the other side pressed back. The metal bent inward like it was made of clay. A voice whispered through the gap. "You looked at it. Now you belong to it." The door burst inward. But there was no one there. Just the empty lantern room and the lens, which had rotated to face me again. It wasn't a machine malfunction. The lighthouse was choosing. The beam hit me full force. My head snapped back. Visions flooded my eyes again. Ships crashing against the rocks. Men screaming. Women pulled into the depths. Children reaching out from the waves. Their voices blended into a single echoing sentence. "It won't let us leave." And then I saw myself standing among them. Dead. Trapped. When the light finally released me, I collapsed. My arms were shaking uncontrollably. The footsteps were coming again, but this time from above, from the top of the lantern room. I ran. I didn't care where. I just had to get out. The stairs blurred beneath me as I descended, nearly falling multiple times. The scratching on the walls seemed to move. Fresh words carved themselves as I passed. Run. 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 At the base, I didn't stop. I sprinted through the door and across the rocks toward the shore. The fisherman was still in his boat, eyes wide with terror. "You stayed too long," he screamed. "It saw you." Behind me, the lighthouse beam locked onto my back like a scope. The fog surged toward me. The ground vibrated. I leapt into the boat, and the fisherman pushed off immediately, rowing like a madman. The beam followed us, unwavering. "Don't look back," he yelled. I didn't listen. I turned. The lighthouse wasn't stationary. It leaned forward, as if the entire structure was bending to watch us leave. Its beams stretched unnaturally far, slicing across the water, illuminating shapes beneath the waves. Hundreds of pale faces just beneath the surface, staring up, reaching. For a moment, the beam touched my face again. The ringing returned, and every face beneath the sea opened its mouth in a silent scream. Then, as suddenly as it began, the light snapped back toward shore. The lighthouse straightened. The fog receded. We glided into open waters, gasping, shaking, alive. The fisherman didn't speak again. He didn't need to. When we reached the harbor, I stepped onto the dock, knees weak, clothes drenched in sweat. I told myself I'd never return. I should never even think about it. But last night, as I was trying to sleep, a light swept across my bedroom wall. Slow, deliberate, like it had found me again. And when I looked out my window, there, miles away on the horizon, standing impossibly tall where no lighthouse should be, Blackridge's beam was pointing straight at my house. Still, unblinking, waiting. And now, it won't let me leave. Story Part 2. The sea doesn't usually whisper your name, but when it does, it wants to keep you forever. I learned that the night I stepped onto Grimwater Island, a jagged, wind-slashed rock in the middle of the North Atlantic. The island was barely the size of a football field, but it held one thing that terrified even the most seasoned sailors: a lighthouse that never, ever turned off. I'm Jacob Merrick, an oceanographer. That's fancy for someone who studies water and gets punched in the face by storms for a living. The Maritime Department sent me to Grimwater on a temporary assignment. 3 lighthouse keepers stationed there had reported strange readings coming from the ocean, changes in tides, distortions in sonar, and, most disturbing, voices. I thought it was technical malfunction. Overworked men, isolation doing its thing. I wish that were true. The moment our small ferry approached the island, something felt wrong. The lighthouse wasn't rotating. Its massive beam was fixed, staring straight down at the water, stabbing the black surface with cold white light. "Doesn't that look odd to you?" I asked the ferryman. He crossed himself and didn't answer. He refused to dock completely, jumping away from the rocks the second my boots touched land. "Don't follow the light," he warned. "If it touches you, you'll never leave here." Before I could ask anything, the waves dragged his boat away like they were impatient. I turned toward the lighthouse. That's when I noticed. It was humming. Not the mechanical hum of old generators, but a deep, melancholy vibration, like a choir singing underwater. The stones around it trembled. 3 men met me at the base, lighthouse keepers, or what used to be them. Their eyes were bloodshot, faces sunken, skin pale as bone. "You shouldn't have come," the eldest said. "It saw your boat." "What saw?" "The lighthouse." They spoke the word like it was alive. Inside, damp air pressed on my lungs. The walls dripped water, though there was no leak. It smelled like the ocean was inside the tower, breathing with me. We climbed to the control room. None of the equipment made sense. The readings were impossible. Tide going out for 4 days straight. Water level dropping at unnatural speed, but currents showing a violent pull inward toward the lighthouse. It was like the ocean itself was being sucked toward the structure. Still, I needed proof. I went out alone onto the outer deck, right beneath the enormous lantern. The beam washed across the ocean, and something shifted beneath the surface. A shape. No, thousands of shapes. Arms, hands, pale bodies floating just beneath the waves. Dead sailors? Old victims. Their faces were turned upward, eyes wide open, rising and sinking rhythmically, as if the sea was breathing them. "That's not possible," I whispered. Then the beam swept over me. Everything went silent, completely, impossibly silent. The wind froze. The sea stopped moving. Even my heartbeat felt distant. And a voice whispered inside the silence, "You came back." I staggered, heart pounding. "What? Who's there?" The light stayed on me. The voice grew clearer. "I've been waiting for you, Jacob." I'd never been to the island before. I swear I hadn't, but the light knew my name. I ran back inside. The keepers looked at me with empty dread. "You looked at it, didn't you?" one asked. "I didn't mean—" "You don't mean to get trapped," he snapped. "You just don't realize you already are." They told me the truth then. The lighthouse was not built on the island. The island formed around it. And the lighthouse was older than the sea charts, older than the coastline, older than the ocean routes. It was a marker, a gate, a creature carved in stone. And its light was not for guiding ships. Its light was for choosing them. "Why haven't you left?" I asked. The eldest laughed, a hollow, hopeless sound. "You can't leave what already owns you." That night, the screaming started. Not human screaming. The sea was screaming. Waves slammed the island. The tower shook so violently, dust rained from the ceiling. The light beamed frantically, sweeping across the water like it was searching for something. I went to the window. The entire ocean was rising. Not like a tide, not like a wave, like a body lifting itself. Millions of dead-faced figures rose with it. Their mouths were open, silent, agonized, and they were all looking at the lighthouse. The keepers ran. I ran with them. Down the spiral staircase, past walls vibrating like a living throat, past carvings I hadn't noticed before, hundreds of names etched by shaking hands, names crossed out violently. At the bottom, the door exploded open. Seawater rushed in. Hands, cold, pale human hands, reached through the water, clawing their way toward us. The eldest keeper got dragged first. He didn't even scream. His body vanished under the flood of grasping arms. I bolted outside. Water wrapped around my legs like chains. The lighthouse's beam swung down and pinned me in its glow. Instantly, the world went quiet again. The dead figures froze, mid-motion, staring. The water stopped rising, and the voice returned. "I kept you once. I'll keep you again. I've never been here," I screamed. The voice laughed softly. "Not in this life." The beam brightened until my vision burned white. I saw flashes. Ships crashing, men drowning, a storm centuries old, the same lighthouse, untouched by time, and me standing on its balcony in clothes from another century. I saw myself die, dragged into the ocean, given to the lighthouse. When the vision faded, I was lying on the rocks, coughing seawater, barely conscious. The other keepers were gone. The island was silent. The lighthouse stood above me, beam slowly returning to its fixed position, as if bored. The ferryman's boat arrived at dawn. He stared at me, like he was looking at a ghost. "You weren't supposed to last the night," he said. He dropped me at the mainland, without a word. I told myself I'd write a report, close the island, destroy the lighthouse, do something. I never got the chance. Because last night, from my apartment window, miles away from any coast, a beam of light swept across my walls. Slow, steady, knowing. And then I heard the whisper again. "You came back home. The lighthouse isn't waiting on Grimwater Island anymore." It followed me. And this time, I know it won't let me leave. The end.